It's concerning how quickly we decided to stop naming world wars and just use a number system. The war to end all wars eventually being referred to as World War I historically is both sad and hilarious. If you consider that wars are typically named after their participants, it makes complete sense. The first one was the Great War, and then what else could you do when it happened again? I agree, it should have gone like this: the Great War 360, the Great War I, the Great War Series X. World War I? Judging by the uniform, yes. Yes, but what do you mean? One? Oh. Sorry. Spoilers. Strangely enough, the idea of a Second World War and even the term World War II were around 20 years before that actual war. Some people warned of a World War II like people today warn of a World War III. Depends on the country. Russia calls World War II the Great Patriotic War. World War involves the globe, not just two countries fighting. To be fair, part of the reason was because the world wars were large-scale wars with multiple countries on either side being fought in multiple countries. The war to end wars made no sense when we got its sequel. WWXX brought to you by Busch Light. We never really named world wars. The Great War is not much of a name. Should have been the World War and then World II War, not hype for World War Tokyo Draft. To be fair, WW1 wasn't named that until after WW2 happened. These shower thoughts are getting worse and worse as the years go on. Say what you want, it is kind of nice seeing everyone get involved in a single cause and rather enthusiastically as well. Remove all the landmines, bombs, general destruction and death. It really is just a nice time to get together. An internet war could have been named World War Web. The numbering of world wars reflects a historical method of simplification and organization, highlighting the global scale and impact of these conflicts. It's a reminder of the importance of striving for peace and understanding in our interconnected world. We've only done it twice, and the last time was 80 years ago. Don't be hyperbolic. I don't think it was quick at all. We'll move to exponent soon. My question is, when does it get named? When Russia invades Poland, will they say, "I declare war on you, this is the Third World War"? World War VIII will feel unwieldy and old-fashioned when floated as an idea to focus groups, so they'll rebrand it as either World War X, World War Zero, or World War I 2177. Who? Do you want a fancy name for World War II? World War I was simply World War or the Great War. I think when we get to the point that nearly every major country has picked sides and starts shooting, the only way to label it is World War, and unfortunately, a number to say which one we are talking about. World War Amy, World War Bob, World War Carl. Here you are. WW1 and WW2 has lesser names before it grew to include the world's biggest powers. WW1 was originally referred to as the Great Wear. In fact, it wasn't even largely referred to as WW1 until 1920, a little over a year after the war ended. As the term World War I was already coined, the term WW2 grew in popularity much quicker. But WW2 was originally referred to as the European War based on the countries involved. Even more interesting, Japan and Soviet Union never referred to it as WW2. Instead, they called it the Great East Asia War and the Great Patriotic War, respectfully. They are still naming other wars, bro. War to end all wars didn't stick. Not really, TBH. Since forever two rival countries would always come to blows trying to cement their dominance. If one party wasn't completely and utterly destroyed, they would probably come back for round two. Now with wars reaching a relatively global scale and the possibility of rivals just appearing over time, a second war was kinda inevitable. The only reason a third one has been delayed is probably due to how costly the second was, nukes, and the fact that cooperation among rivals is just better than outright war on every front. I'm more concerned about the need to have wars than I am about the naming scheme. The Great War II, Germany Strikes Back, the Cold War, the Great War on Ice, the Great War III, TBD. We decided to stop naming world wars and just use a number system. What? There were no world wars before WW1 and WW2 LMAO. To Ryan, who died in World War I, the war to end all wars. To Gianelli, who died in the war after that. I think we should use a hybrid number and title system like World War II, Germany Strikes Back. You want them to do Naruto video game naming conventions instead, right? Super Mega Great War 3 Shattered Realms Hyperchige, the sequel. I thought it was weird when World War I was called the First World War way back when it happened and even before it happened, if I recall correctly, and not in retrospect after the outbreak of World War II. But then I realized that it wasn't saying World War I of 6 or whatever, it was this is the first time in history that the nations of the world have gone to war with each other. The Second World War was likewise saying welp, second time this has happened and not World War II in the sequence has dropped, but who will win World War III? Stay tuned for the next 100 years. When perpetual war is the basis of your economy, you have to compromise somewhere, so creative names and basic liberties had to be given up. World War for Rock and Sticks Bungaloo. Not really. Before WW1 and WW2, they were all called the same thing. It actually wasn't until after we even called them WW1 and WW2. I mean, why not start using numbers with the sequel? Zoolander 2 is still numbered, but they don't plan on making many more. Well, I mean, the first one was just the Great War. And I mean, when you have an extremely similar large-scale conflict, is it that concerning to call it the Second World War? Just because it got shortened to WW2 doesn't mean we were counting on a third. World War without Bob Semple Tank, World War with Bob Semple Tank. Sounds like something Philomena Kunk would say. At the time, with how quickly the second one came after the first, it was almost setting up a trend. Reminder that up until the mid-80s at least WW3 was considered to be one bad away. Honestly, I don't see it as a number system. I see it more as a continuation. I think even at the time they realized that they basically just took a 20-year break from the First War. But calling it the Great War Part 1 and Part 2 would sound like a joke. So we just started referring to them as World War I and II. Why is it concerning? There was the Great War, then there was another. Like we've literally only had 2 world wars. What were they supposed to call the second one? The Big War? Americans phoning it in. Other nations like Russia have banger titles: the Imperialist War and Great Patriotic War, both accurate and badass. Freebie Korean War was war to resist American aggression about the region Irk, which is very based. I love how we just name world wars like it's a sequel to a movie. I think keeping track could be a good thing though. At least we aren't in the double digits. We should number every war a country has had. Truth is they knew it wouldn't stop at 2. To be fair, WW2 was very much a direct sequel to the first one. In a way they are kinda the same war with a 2-decade armistice in the middle. World of World War II-3. When you start off with the war to end all wars, there isn't much room to name a second one. Oops, another war, and it's worse. Are the war to end all wars 2 fingers crossed? The Great War Remastered, World War II, World War I, World War II Remastered. There's an Arabic saying that goes something like, if something happens once, it's probably just a one-off. If something happens twice, it will surely happen a third time. Here's to you, boys. To Ryan, who died in World War I, the war to end all wars. To Gianelli, who died in the war after that, Cole Sherman Potter.